going on, everyone? So the Lakers trade for Mark Williams might be coming back to bite them in the behind. So for those that don't remember, right, Lakers traded for Mark Williams. They offered a first, right, Dalton Connect. It was Cam Reddish, but that was just to kind of clear off a roster spot, clear off some salary so they could go and sign a guy, and then also a pick swap, right? So Lakers were willing to kind of pony up for a guy in Mark Williams, right? Well, reports have came out that since they went and, ponied up what they were willing to pony up for Mark Williams, that teams essentially want that. Right? So, that's why you're hearing about the Andrew Wiggins trade. They want Rui, Gabe Vincent, Dalton Connect, and a first. I mean, it'd have to be Gabe Vincent or Kleba or whoever, because you have to match salaries, right? So, teams, what do they want? They essentially want the Mark Williams package, even for an Andrew Wiggins. Like teams that want, Lakers have reached out to, Nick Richards and Evie Missy and, Robert Williams and all these guys. And we keep getting reports that the asking prices are insane. Now, originally, the reports were that teams perceived the Lakers as desperate. Now, look, both can be true. Teams could perceive could have, we'll touch on that here in a moment, could have perceived the Lakers as desperate, but also looked at the Mark Williams trade and were like, you're willing to pony up because you're desperate. Here's the thing, and I'm going to read the report here in a moment, but here's the thing. Lakers are not desperate anymore, right? Lakers don't need to pony up that. The Mark Williams thing made sense at the time because they were desperate. They needed a center. Lakers aren't desperate anymore, but we'll dive into that here further in a moment. So, according to a report, teams who had centers available for trade kept their asking price high in talks with the Lakers after LA exposed what it was willing to pay for Mark Williams. Teams who had center available were keeping their prices for the Lakers high when they called, sources said, after they had established what they were willing to pay for Mark Williams in the February rescinded trade, wrote ESPN's Tim Buttons and Brian Windhorst. So according to Tim Buttons and Brian Windhorst, teams are keeping their prices high because of what they were willing to pay for Mark Williams. But again, everything's changed now. One, talking about the Mark Williams trade, yes, it was an overpay, but it made sense at the time. You were trying to win a championship right now. You just got Luka Doncic. You don't have a center. You could potentially get your franchise center, right? Teams know you're going to have to overpay. Do it. But it was justified. It made sense to overpay for Mark Williams because, one, he's super skilled. He's the exact type of center you want alongside Luka Doncic, and he's not a guy that's a stopgap guy. He's a guy that could be your center for the next 8 years alongside Luka. So now, bare minimum, you have your franchise center and your franchise point guard, and you figure out the rest along the way, right? Whatever happens with Austin Reeves and whatever other players, so on and so forth, right? So it made sense at that time. And again, the Lakers were trying to go win an NBA championship. If the Lakers had Mark Williams and he was healthy, what happens this season, right? Maybe the Lakers do win a championship. Maybe the Lakers do beat Minnesota. Some people think Mark Williams wouldn't have made a difference in that Minnesota series. Don't be shocked. Mark Williams was a 20-10 guy without Luka, right? I know he's not looked at as a great center. Neither was PJ Washington. PJ Washington was just looked at as a bucket getter, power forward, and then he went to Dallas, and it's a winning team. And then all of a sudden, he became their defensive anchor. Literally, he was excellent defensively for them. He was arguably the best defensive player on that team when they were on their run. Why? Because it's very different. It's hard to get up and play defense for 48 minutes when you're getting blown out by 30 every night. Right, when you're one of the worst teams in basketball every night. It's like, dude, you want me to give 110% defensively when you're purposely trying to tank and we're getting blown out every night. Right? It's very different when you go to a team like Dallas that was trying to win a championship and we're trying to win and building a winning culture and all this stuff. All of a sudden, it's like, dude, I got to buy in. We're trying to win a chip here. We're not tanking for, the number one pick. We're rising up for a Larry O'Brien. Right? Well, guess what happens when you go to Lakers? Same thing. So don't be shocked at the mark. Obviously, we will never know, right? So it is just opinions. But don't be shocked if, run some simulations and watch the Lakers win that championship with Mark Williams. But I digress. Kind of got on a rant there. Point is, right? You look at the situation now. Lakers are no longer desperate. Lakers no longer need to pony up for a center. And they don't need a starting center. They don't. They need a backup. Right? Again, what they were willing to give up for Mark Williams made sense. Maybe an Yves Missi because he's 21 years old, and again, he could be your franchise guy. So, that you could justify, but even then, I'd probably not try to give up both. Because again, you're not in a place of desperation. At that point, at that time, yesterday's price is not today's, right? So it's that saying over and over again, right? We were willing to pony that up because we didn't have anybody. Now we have DeAndre Ayton. Now we have Jackson Hayes in a backup role, which is what he should have always been. Now we have Maxi Kleber that can be that floor spacer. I would prefer trade Maxi Kleber. I like Maxi Kleber, but if you can get an Al Horford or, there's talks about Nikola Vucevic potentially getting bought out, can you maybe go get him and bring him in off the bench? Right, so on and so forth, right? Ideally, I'd like to get a clearer, better upgrade at the backup. But it's not something the Lakers are desperate for anymore. Right? Like, it's not something that the Lakers need to go kicking doors in order to acquire and get. It's not something the Lakers even have to necessarily give up assets for. Right? You look at a team like Phoenix. You're really going to go into training camp with 5 centers? Like, enjoy. Good luck to you. Right? Call us when that doesn't work. Right? When all of a sudden these centers start getting pissed off because they're not getting playing time and all that stuff. All of a sudden, we're asking you for assets. Right? Like, it's just, again, like, things change. Teams wanted the Lakers to pony up. They should have done it back then. As soon as the Luka trade happened, teams should have been calling the Lakers up, going like, "Hey, you need a center. We got a guy." Well, you didn't. Lakers tried for Mark Williams. Unfortunately, it fell through. And then now, guess what? They got DeAndre Ayton. They don't need a starting center anymore. And most of the centers that the Lakers are linked to aren't starting centers anymore. Right? Like, Nick Richards is not a starting center. He's a backup. Right? Like, you look at Robert Williams. The guy can't play more than 20 games. Like, he's a backup, right? Like, he's probably best as your third big because he might end up getting hurt and you can't rely on him. So Jackson Hayes might even be more important. But Jackson Hayes might end up being the primary backup in that situation, right? But if you can get him for essentially, just swapping players, then, maybe a throwing a pick swap or something, then sure, right? Like, Lakers need to continue and remain patient. I know it's frustrating at times. I know it's hard at times, but we got to remain patient. Somebody's going to budge. Somebody's going to fold, right? There are several teams that have too many centers that they're going to have to figure stuff out on, right? Like, again, you have teams like the Pelicans, like the Suns, like the Blazers. You got a couple teams out east, right? Like, Lakers, if you stay the course and you stay patient, somebody's going to cave. We're 3 months out from training camp. The closer we get to training camp, the more those prices start to drop. I mean, it's happened before for the Lakers, right? Like, prices, like the Utah trade, obviously that didn't happen at the before training camp, but the price literally cut in half between this time that year and then training camp because Utah wanted the farm, and then they got close to training camp and it was like, oh well, okay, fine. Tell you what, we'll just do one unprotected first in a pick swap, and then it was like 2 days before training camp, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, fine, we'll take both picks, but they're unprotected. And the Lakers just didn't want to do that because Jeannie Buss wanted to kind of wait it out, and then the vetoed Miles Turner, Buddy Hield trade, which to this day I believe the Lakers would have won a championship already had that happened. I mean, 2023 they probably win a championship because they would have been better matched up for Denver, and whoever came out of the West was going to beat Miami that year. So it's just like, oh man. It's like, darn it. But again, Lakers are in the right direction. Lakers stay in the right course. And you just, again, let things come to you. All right. Let things develop. Don't jump the gun. Again, Lakers, for the first time in a while, are not in a place of desperation. They're good. I mean, they have a 15-man roster right now. Obviously, the Lakers are still trying to upgrade, but they're good. Anyway, as always, this is a discussion, pass a question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot, so we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.